people that we like to thank for helping. A lot of people have been coming up to us saying that this has been a great symposium, but it wasn't just us. There were a lot of people behind the scenes, as I'm sure you guys have realized. First of all, we want to thank the graduate students that have presented. Everyone did a great job. We're really excited. And we know it takes a lot of time and energy to do that. Secondly, we'd like to thank all the graduate students that were on the GSS committees, and we're going to go through those one by one. So, first of all, for the program committee, they were the ones that did the scheduling and posted the program. Hopefully you guys looked at online. And that was Rebecca Atkins, Michelle Evans, Westlyn, and Rennie Powell. Thank you guys so much. The undergraduate poster committee was a committee of one. Robbie did a great job having all the undergrads practice and then also getting the posters put up on time. Then the judging committee, which arranged all the judges. Some of you might have been aware there were faculty, postdocs, graduate students judging every session, so we get great feedback on our talks. That was made up by Dan Becker, Kate Farrell, and Elizabeth Hammond. And then the food and beverage committee, behind the scenes, making sure there's coffee, food, every break. It's a lot of work. So thank you to Caitlin Kahn, Daniel Harris, Kelsey Solomon, and Dexter Struthers. Also, souvenir committee, Daniel Baker, Amy Briggs, and Paige Miller. They've been selling souvenirs, got them signed, everything. Thank you to y'all. This Prospective Student Committee, Anya Brown, Cecilia Sanchez, and John Benson. Thank you guys for making sure Perspectives had a great time and everybody had a place to stay. And then also AD Committee, Katie Brownson and Liz Guinnessy. Thank y'all as well. And one huge shout out to the first years. You guys really represented. Thank you so much. They were on over half of our committees, and it's really awesome to see you guys participating.
Yeah, so in addition to all the students that helped out on committees, we want to thank all of the other graduate students that performed countless other roles as moderators, as presentation judges, audiovisual coordinators, you name it. And we're also grateful to the faculty and postdocs that helped with judging throughout this event. I think that's one of the most unique aspects of this symposium is we get so much wonderful feedback from you guys. We also want to thank the administrative and technical staff of the Odom School. Specifically, we appreciate the help of Catherine Adams, Christy Fix, Beth Graviles, Brenda Maddox, Emily Schattler, Lee Snelling, Tyler Ingram, Brian Perkins, and Shiloh Wilson. There's a ton of you, and you've done so many different things, from helping with computer problems, organizing our speakers. It's been really helpful. And we're also grateful to all of you guys for coming to our symposium and supporting student research here in the Odom School. It really means a lot. And lastly, we want to thank Doug Parsons for accepting our invitation to come back as our keynote speaker and for returning to the Odom School to share your experiences with science policy. And we're also grateful to Seth and Lori for hosting Doug for the past few days. And right now, we'd like to invite Seth up to introduce Doug more formally.
So, when I first heard that Doug Parsons was nominated for GSS speaker, my reaction was disbelief. Doug Parsons? Isn't Doug Parsons? Yeah, hi. Needs a haircut? Yeah, Doug Parsons. And I think my surprise could be forgiven, because if you look back at the GSS speakers, every single one up to now has been a PhD. Now, at the Odom School, we do award PhDs. That's part of what we're in the business of doing. We award a lot of PhDs. I'm only even got a PhD. But we also award master's students. And some of the folks who do masters, they go on to do research and they may pursue a PhD as well. But a lot of others go into management and policy, and they use the ecology, conservation, and study. They apply it into solving issues. And Doug exemplifies that kind of career track. So it's high time that we've had someone like Doug on the stage. So at this point, you think I'm going to turn it over to Doug, but they actually gave me 15 minutes. And I've got a few things to say. I think the one reason that we're having this, substantial intro time is that Doug never got a proper roast. He actually roasted himself. This is true. And this may have been for the best. He did a great job. I was there. It was very funny. And also, ever since, he gets to tell people how he roasted himself. I've heard this basically every time I see Doug. And actually, if you go to the ODM website, there's an interview with Doug that's up there. We get interviews with a number of our alums that are posted on the website. And Doug was asked, what's your fondest memory of your time in ecology? He said, well, it's the time I roasted myself. Which is like saying the best thing about ecology was me. False modesty was never a vice. But I learned two things from Doug. The first one is the importance of working smarter, not harder. Now that sounds like a backhanded comment. Doug's lazy. I want to be clear, that's what I'm saying. I am also a lazy man. If there's a more efficient way to do something, you get it done faster, you get on to the next task. Get more done or take an act, depending just how much you are. But his, Doug's approach is exemplified by how he played ultimate frisbee. He played ultimate together years ago. Actually, the same ultimate game has been more or less what I want before we ever since then. So it's on Darrow playing. But we played together back then, and I would be running up and down the field trying to get open. No one threw frisbee at me, because I'm a terrible athlete. So I'm running around exhausting myself, and Doug would just stroll down the field. So he goes in the frisbee, he looks up and down. One perfect throw all the way down, arcs around. It's the one person who's there waiting in the end zone. And then Doug would slowly do that. Then I'd be, doubled over, kicking my. There's something I could learn from that. The other thing I learned from Doug is actually the importance of investing in the things you believe in. I don't know if you remember this, Doug, 10, 15 years ago, I don't know when it was, talked to me, told me how you and your wife tried to take 10% of your income for taxes, and invested in charities, causes of good. Doug's always been interested in politics and issues of the world and trying to do something about that. I was so struck by that, that is actually a wonderful model. I try to do it myself, and I pass this on to a lot of other people, so you can influence by the people who really. So, now the actual introduction. Doug, after earning his master's here, went to work for the Georgia Conservancy as a policy analyst for a different number of years. Then he moved on to a position as something called the Queensland Natural Resource Management Group's Collective. From there, back to the U.S. to work for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and up to D.C. with the Climate Change Response Program at the National Park Service, and finally into his present position, which is apparently the North American Policy Director for everything. Organization here, which is the Society for Conservation Biology. So with that, I give Doug Parsons.
This whole thing is a height thing, right? It comes back to the height issue, right? All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here today. What a great honor to be here as the keynote speaker. As I've been saying to my wife, I describe myself as the keystone speaker for this, and screwing it up, but it's relevant to the field. So this is really a great honor. Thanks to the organizers for inviting me. You guys have done a fantastic job here. I did this a long time ago, 15, 16 years ago, and this is, it's still a top-notch thing. I do love these rapid rounds. We didn't have the 5-minute. I would have done that each time because finding a shortcut, smart. And so, thanks again. Fantastic. I want to thank the dean. Thanks to the faculty, Lori, for putting me up the last couple nights, and all of you for being here today. It's Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, so I do appreciate that. I actually don't get to see pure science that often. Like, you guys have been up here presenting, and to be quite honest, 50% of it. But it's good for me to get this exposure, and very exciting all the work that you're doing. And I've been having all sorts of great conversations. People have been coming up to me. I've tried to go up to people. This creepy guy saddling up next to me. And so just fantastic conversations, like today at lunch. We talked all about online dating, very relevant to what you guys are doing here. Yesterday, I had a brilliant brainstorm with a couple of students on how we could dress up non-charismatic wildlife as pandas, So very excited about that. So let's get started. And I've never been asked to speak for an hour before. I don't plan on speaking for an hour, but you never know. I don't usually rehearse like you guys have to. You guys, in 12 minutes, you're done. And so it's not going to be like that. But hopefully you'll learn something about life in D.C. And, I'm going to tell other stories of other places that I've worked. I've moved around a bit. But take a look at that. You laugh. A year from now, that could be your president-elect. Take a good look. He is running front runner in the Republican primary. That's a reality. So I wanted to make a presentation about how crazy sometimes science is in D.C., and it just really worked out perfectly that Donald Trump is running for the presidency. And so it's sort of a theme of mine here. Right. Okay. Three-part presentation here. I want to tell you what I'm talking about. So first of all, it's going to be a little bit about me and my journey, about some of my experiences working and being a student. Try to give you a sense of what, what's that, how I got to where I really, everyone thought I half-assed it. So second part is going to be about more of the Trump theme, like, what the craziness of dealing with policy in this world we live in, how science is currently under attack. Science is convenient only is when it's convenient. So, and finally, I want to end with talking about you guys and sort of the skills and sort of advice I'd like to give you guys, and what I think you as most of you are scientists, how what in my own personal opinion on how you guys can, beyond this great science that you're doing, can change the world and be more effective out there. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with this. So. All right, me. So I'm going to get a little, into the story of, I want to set some ground rules here. Social networking ground rules. Please tweet, okay? You guys are out there, tweet. No Tinder. That's for the party later, right? Photos, yes, please take photos, but no selfies, all right? But I wanted to take my own selfie with you guys all together. So if you're in behind me, if you raise your hand and wave, please, behind me. All right. Excellent. I got a selfie for So here are some hashtags and some tweet stuff that you can do. So please do that. That's what this is the new thing. We didn't do that when I was a kid. All right, a little bit about the Society for Conservation Biology. To be perfectly honest, who hasn't heard of SCB? I'm referring to SCB from now on. SCB, you've all heard of it? Because I'm actually, when I was here, ESA, the Ecological Society, was more of the kind of preferred science society, and, I actually didn't really know much about SCB. And so, it's conservation biologists, but it actually has quite a few other folks, conservation planners and all sorts of random people, but it really is a lot of academics. And the mission here, I think most of us in this room, something we can support. And so I've been with them for about 2 years, I think. And so, I'm the only one really doing policy for them. Most of the organizations, the small organizations, focusing on just supporting the Science Society. And so they actually, I have a half-time assistant who's helping me do policy work. And so we are a really small organization. Has anyone published in conservation biology before? Get a hand. All right. One. Seven. All right. Okay. I'm going to have to talk to Mark about that. So this is our big journal. We do online publication, Conservation Letters, and so I encourage you, especially Conservation Letters, if you're doing more policy. And the Conservation Letters is more of the platform that you have. You want to kind of an unusual topic, or you're having a conversation, or more of the social sciences. The conservation biology is sort of pure book, and each I think it's published every 2 or 3 months. And I should know this, but I get my own free copy. And it makes a great paperweight. But I thumb through it. So that is our journal. But it's actually, there's quite a detachment between our journal and what we do, the DC office. Most of the staff is in the DC office. Mark, he does it at the University of Melbourne, and he does the editing from there. So you can do it from all over the world. Sort of like, we have our own godfather, our own originator here with Eugene Odom, and I was actually here in Dr. Odom's last few years, and so I didn't work with him, but I mean, I recognize what an honor it was. Here he is, this living legend, was in the halls, people would go have lunch with him, and so that was very exciting. Michael Stoulet is one of the founders of the Society for Conservation Biology, Thomas Lovejoy, a couple others who were really there. So these people had sort of a vision, let's organize ourselves. And so conservation biology, and I think it was its own debate, should it be its own discipline, but I do like, that individual focus, because I think it was, I work with the Ecological Society of America quite a bit, but I guess the emphasis a lot on pure research versus like conservation biology. The science itself is about conservation. And it's quite interesting, since I'm not a scientist, I don't have to worry about this, but like conservation biologists have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder about like the science that they do. They're not activists, they're not doing campaigns, but like the science of conservation, how does that fit into science? And so my members, they keep like a tight leash on any time it seems like I'm not reflecting the purity of the science. So that's an interesting fun way about it. A little bit more information. We have 7 sections, and I represent the North America section. And so 4,000 members, and the model we work with is that we have these chapters. And most of the chapters are in North America, but we have an Asia section, and we have a European section, an Africa section, but we also have a marine section, which is more a topical section, which is a little unusual. And so doing a lot of really interesting things, a lot of, every day I'm getting contacted, or just I deal with members who do the coolest things in the world, like sort of like what you guys are doing. People are doing really amazing work out there in different countries, and so when you go to meetings and stuff, you're always the most boring person there. So it's really cool stuff. For your own benefit, and I was talking to Amy Rose, who's never been to an SCB conference. Change that. There's one. These are kind of old ones here, but we have our big North America one in. I'm sorry, I can change that. It's in Madison, Wisconsin in July. And so it's all these conservation biologists coming together, and you can sort of miss a window, submitting panel ideas, but it's a really good vibe, really great science, and they're bringing a bit more policy and education into those conferences. But the different sections have different meetings. So July, the Asia is having a Singapore meeting, the Marine section up in northern Canada, and so constant meetings. And I don't get to go to all of them, although we had our big global conference. We do it every 2 years, and our big one was in August in France. That was pretty sweet. The entire staff got to go to France for the conference. I couldn't complain about that. So that's what we're known for, a lot of what they do. I don't really get involved in conference planning, but that's what a lot of the staff do. And so there's actually a UGA chapter. And I came back like a year and a half ago, and I talked to them. And so I don't think any of them are here. I don't know if they saw any of the flyers. Anybody from the SCB chapter here? No. Oh. Boy. But if you're thinking about it, here you go. Take a photo right now. I'm interested in learning more. They do, stuff around campus. They have socials, so you don't have to do that online dating. So I want to hype that there's a chapter here. All right, so pivoting. University of Georgia. I was actually born in Gainesville, Florida. I'm a Florida Gator. Very difficult. But in the big picture, I really don't care about college football, so it wasn't that big. When I came, it was the Institute of Ecology, and I keep referring to it as the Institute of Ecology, even though you're now our official school. Kathy Pringle, who apparently is on the Love Boat somewhere, can't be here today. She brought me in. She was my major advisor. So just to give you a little bit more background, I actually got an undergrad in English, in creative writing. And so, I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later, but I wanted to go back into science. And so I heard about this program through a friend, a graduate of this program. And she said, this is perfect for you. It gets you more involved. And so I spent a couple of years taking science courses to kind of get the foundation that you'd be eligible. And so I heard about Kathy needing someone to continue her Adopt a Stream program down in Costa Rica. So I contacted her. I could joke about, it's just like, I need to speak Spanish, and yes. And so the rest is history. So I came to work with Kathy in the Conservation Ecology Master's program. And so the product out of all 2 years, we created some educational materials. And so I went down to Costa Rica, worked with some of the schools down there, and it was a continuation of a program that other students had been working on. I don't know, Tina Laidlaw was the original person, and then Scott Coleman followed her, and then I kind of came after. I don't know. Those were big shoes to fill. So it was really cool. My field work was hanging out in small communities in Costa Rica, working with, I think it was middle school age students, and just trying to figure out, like, what are some tools and resources that would be useful for them as they try to think about water quality in their area. And if you know Kathy, long history with Costa Rica, long history with Puerto Rico, North Carolina, and so this is a continuation of, Kathy brought me in, she didn't have to. I always joke about this, and when I see Kathy, she always has these, she just, says the nicest things about me, and just makes my ego, and I think that's part of her ploy. She didn't have to bring someone like me in. I got the GRE score barely, and I had the core science courses, and so she brought me in because she just supported conservation, and it wasn't her main thing. She's an academic scientist, and 90% of her students were just academic scientists, and so I'm here today because of Kathy Pringle, and I owe her a ton. I was actually doing temp work as I was taking night classes in Austin, Texas, and I got that phone call from her, and it was like the greatest day of my life. I'm going to this incredible program, and the rest is history. Okay, so don't yell it out. Name this location and get a prize. Take a look. I don't want any professors raising their hand. Does anyone know where that is or what that is? Come on. I'm going to get some hints if you don't know. Give me a hand. Oh, I think you were first. Yes. Yes. Okay, here you go. I'm going to pass this up to you on the throat, all right? This is some swag from SCB. Ready? Oh, beautiful. Okay. I actually was able to track this down. I totally forgot, and I was working with Beth Anderson, a former Pringle Lab person. She was like, what was that lady's name again? I don't know before, but track it down. So the reason I'm bringing this up is so I got to the University of Georgia, and I had to start taking the science courses. I took Kathy and Ron's, famous, what's it called? The Conservation Ecology, the introduction course. But that just changed my world. That was a great course. But then I had to take all these other science courses, even though I was focusing on policy and education, and I was taking limnology with Judy Meyer. She's retired now, but again, another legend in the field. And so Lake Oglethorpe is where all the limnology students, and I think it's called Freshwater Aquatics now. Is that the name of the course? Amy, is this your course now? Yeah, your course? Okay, that's what I thought. So you still go out here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking about this poor lake. The students come out every year, and the turtles are just like, oh, great, more students. All right, get ready for my cavity surge again. This thing has been sampled the hell out of it. But it was fun. It was fun, and I was a non-science student, and I had to take this course. So I want to spend a little bit of time here. Science was really hard for me. I mean, I did okay in the introduction, but when I got to this in limnology, it was such a struggle for me. And I think about that Lake Oglethorpe stuff. I mean, you literally went out there and you sampled things. And this is what you guys do all the time. It's not what was my history. Science was hard. I love science. I'm obsessed with science. I read all the popular stuff about science. But doing science is much harder. And so, writing science is awful. It's this ridiculous thing. Methods and results. And so I was a creative writing major. And so, Lake Oglethorpe, it was the only time I ever had to write a scientific paper. You got your results and you're out there, and I'm sitting there, just typing away, writing up my results. I'm sure Judy's shredder. It's just I took the 10 milliliter test tube and I put it in the water, and I knew in my heart it was the right thing to do. Shit! You just had to suck all the life out of that text. Who wants to read that? But you had to. You had to read it and write it that way. It was so awful. And these courses limnology and some of the other, I'm trying to think of a couple of the other science-based courses, like freshwater, wetland ecology, and you read all these papers, famous papers and all that, and so you're reading it, and someone with my attention span is just terrible. You can't get through a paragraph without 3 or 4 references. And so there's parentheses, and there's names, there's no momentum to reading these papers. How do you get through all these papers? And so it took me a long time, and I got really good at the art of reading abstracts. You know, wing the but seeing that the reference page is like 10 pages, that always was like, whoo, good. So I actually said, I think you used the word half-ass about me, and there you go. It's in my presentation, half-ass in the scientific method. So I would be in the Pringle lab, and terms like regression analysis would come up, and I probably should have just looked it up and had someone explain to me, but for like 6 months, what does this mean? I don't get what this concept means, because these charts and these graphs and all that, and so publishing, gosh, but again, the joke about I wrote this myself, it had to do with publishing. And the only publishing I was doing was, on policy stuff. I'm going to get into that with Lori Fowler, so the work that I did with her. But so like in the Pringle lab, I don't know if she still does this, but I remember, especially if people were working on drafts of paper, we would have lab meetings maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. I forgot exactly what it was. We'd all get around the table in that room over there, the conference room, and everyone had to have read the paper and then mark up with their comments. And so we go around, and it was such a painful process for me because I felt like it was a big dumbass. I felt like with a legendary crew, Alonzo Ramirez, Gene March, Jonathan Benstead, Kay Schofield, just some real incredible folks. And so they would come in, and we started doing these things, and my markups were like, have you considered a different font? Well, what is all these charts? Didn't want to open my mouth. And then, of course, it was just embarrassing in hell, like anything that I had to write. And that picture right there was me 70% of the time in that lab meeting. But I struggled through. I got on, and I learned a ton. I don't want to leave this on a negative point. I learned a ton in that, and because I didn't have that culture of an undergrad in science, and so it was just eye-opening, and I was getting passing grades. So it wasn't fraud that I was here. In fact, I think I was the only person who got a B in that limnology. And when you get to graduate school, I know the professor is going to, no, that's not true. If you get anything under an A, that's trouble. And I had a B in limnology. I felt like the dumbest kid in the class. I think Judy. So that life in the Pringle lab, it was fun, but it was intimidating. And so, I put a lot of thought into this, because I had my field work in Costa Rica, and that was in the summers. But when I came back, I instantly gravitated toward all this stuff that Lori was doing, the Edo practicum, and it just, that excited me, education and policy. And so I was attending, the Fowler Lab meetings, getting to know all your students, and quickly, I don't think you saw me more than Kathy ever did. And so I was trying to come up with an image for this slide, and at first I started with Two-Face from Batman, just an awful one there, and then and I'm like, I don't want to give sort of a negative connotation of the Pringle lab. But see, you're laughing. I thought about it, and it's just the whole concept of yin and yang is sort of this complementary thing. And I would not have been able to contribute to the Fowler lab had I not been getting that foundation and what was going on in Kathy's lab. The reading of the science and that exposure, and even in those lab meetings where we were sort of tearing the papers apart, I was learning this is how the process works. This is how scientific method is not pretty. And so that gave me the ability even to start reading policy papers that were science-based, a really strong foundation. And so, I did feel like I had two lives, it's just like Fowler lab time. And it nothing to do with Kathy. It's the sort of intimidation factor. And so, so that was a big part of what I was doing, and I quickly gravitated in the Edo practicum. I worked with some law students, which in itself is very interesting. Law students, they want to get things done. They're done. And no, let's think big, let's dream. No. Okay. peer. Never had someone achieve so much with so little. That is an actual quote from him from about 3 weeks ago. I got access to your Facebook page, buddy. And anyway, final point, that peer pressure, you know, it's like, Doug, you know, in that Pringle lab, just with the work I was doing, you know, those nasty things people would say. Doug, the bathroom's out of toilet paper, are you done with your draft yet? Doctor, Seth Wanger. All right, let's move on. Okay, so my professional journey. I started off in Costa Rica when I graduated with my English degree and thought, all right, I can either work at McDonald's or Taco Bell. So I met my current wife when I was finishing up school, and we both were just game about living overseas. So we went to Costa Rica and we taught English for about 1.5 years down in San Jose. Big adventure. Don't go to San Jose, that's awful, but we made a lot of weekend adventures up to Arnau and all the cool spots. And so there, that's really, I just got the bug, and I'm going to get into it a little bit later, but really got my inspiration to go back, focus on science in some way. I don't know if it's wildlife management or whatever. And so I'm leaving out one area where I got my foundation in science at night school in biology, you know, that I was living in Austin, Texas for a couple years. Purposely left that out. Okay, Austin's good. Perfect. Institute of Ecology, 2 of the best years of my life. That's where it all changed. That's where I was going to take my career trajectory. Just intellectually engaging. Everything was fabulous about it, except for the last 6 months when I was working on my thesis with Kathy. That was awful. You know, Kathy had a big can of red paint in her office. I'd come in, I'd hand my draft. She'd not even make eye contact with me, stick it in. And I get back. And I come back a few weeks later. So, right after that, I got a job before I was done. That's how hot it was. Just a hot commodity. And I didn't really about it. She got me my job at Georgia Conservancy. You did. Susan Kidd got that connection there. Worked for Georgia Conservancy, and it's a statewide organization. I don't know what they're doing now. I haven't really followed that closely, but I felt like I was there during the golden era with John Sigley and Susan Kidd. I was the natural areas policy analyst. And that's really when I started to kind of do policy for real, you know, and get paid for it. And so that was exciting. I love that job. I meet all sorts of interesting folks in Georgia. Traveled all over the states, and it was just a really great learning experience. I was a military grad, so I did 3 years, and I'm just antsy, I got to go somewhere. And my wife wanted to go back to do her PhD, and so we thought, hey, let's go have an adventure. So she got accepted to go to graduate school in Brisbane, Australia. And like, all right, I'll do that. So, meanwhile, just as that was happening, we had our first child. Had to leave 6 weeks later. My son's passport was 10 when he was 3 days old. So we get to Australia, and she's going to school, and do I have a job waiting for me? No. So I started volunteering at the Queensland EPA, and that too is based on connections, but I'll get back to this theme of connections and networking relationships. Ray Anderson at like a board meeting, just chatting with him, telling Ray Anderson, he was not around with us anymore, but just he's a legend, he's got this carpet business, sustainability. He was board member of Georgia Conservancy, had a contact in Queensland. I contacted that guy. He's like, whatever you want, just come on, we'll have you volunteer in our office, gave him the stage and everything. So it was great to have that Ray Anderson link. Was in Australia for 3.5 years. I wanted to stay permanently. It's the greatest place on the planet. If you ever get there, don't leave. But we had to leave. And my wife finished a degree, got a job with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. There, I was hired in this sort of nebulous partnership coordinator to help the State Wildlife Action Plan process. And so you can drive a truck for a title like partnership coordinator. And just at the moment, the governor there was getting very interested in climate change. And so they put on a big climate change summit. And I just kept raising my hand because they were looking for volunteers to work on this. And so I basically became the co-conference coordinator with another guy there who happened to be a climate change skeptic. He was a law enforcement guy. And the executive director purposely put him in charge because he knew he was a skeptic. It's not going to change his mind. It's tough. And so I did that, and I basically, after 12 months, became the climate change coordinator at this agency that started this climate change program from scratch. That was really cool. So I did that for 3.5 years, but I was part of a lot of national conversations on climate change, getting invited to speak and talk about what states are doing, and I just got the bug for DC. And so that next step, no, I didn't get a job with my got a job at the National Park Service with their climate change response program. And that was an exciting job because in the last 5 years is when the feds really woke up to climate change and adaptation planning. And so I got to go to a lot of these meetings. They were exciting, sort of. But you learn how policies being made on climate change. So I worked for the National Park Service for a bit, but I came up at a pretty high GS level, what that means. I didn't have authority over anyone, but I got to attend a lot of meetings on behalf of very high-level people. But if you do your job right, you really potentially can influence some things. You weigh in on behalf of what you're talking about. Great learning experience, but quite frankly, if you start off in DC as a Fed, it's a little bit demoralizing. You're not using your creativity. I wasn't a good fit. I think if you do work out in the regions, those are where the passionate people are. So I don't want to diss being a Fed. It depends where you start. And starting in DC wasn't necessarily the best thing to do. And that's when I made the move over to the Society for Conservation Biology. And I don't want to jump too much into my roles and responsibilities at SCB because they're going to kind of come up in these other points I want to make. So, all right, part 2. Now I want to get talking about maybe some more of these Trump-related issues. How crazy politics and science and how illogical some things can be. And I just want to make a note that some people have different experiences. Some people just deal in some tracks of policy that are very predictable and then there's a rational behind it. But then if you kind of get in anything somewhat controversial, and I've been dealing with climate change since Australia, and so it's a controversial subject. So, speaking of which, I want to take sort of a side tangent somewhat, but it's related to all these things about climate change. That's he who must not be named. We are still talking about climate change being this controversial scientific topic. It's crazy. And so I got involved with climate change starting in Australia. I was working with farm groups. This was back in 2005, and we had this conference about climate change in Australia. I mean, imagine doing a climate change conference with the Farm Bureau now. It's not going to happen. It's becoming too politicized. But what's exciting about climate change, and this is what the message is going to give to you guys, it's an emerging issue. Even though you think you hear about it all the time, we have just scratched the surface on climate change, on adaptation planning. I mean, that's why it's exciting to be part of the policy process, because you can actually influence things on a certain trajectory. Hopefully you have good judgment and you're basing it on sound science. But it's an area, it's a growth area. And so we've talked about changing our name at SCB, and to me it's like the Society of Adaptation Biology. The School of Adaptation. It's going to overwhelm everything, how we're going to be responding to climate change. And I don't think people appreciate this tidal wave that's coming that we're going to have to deal with. And even though you guys think you're deep in it, I mean, we're just scratching the surface. And so for me, it was a career shift. A very exciting career shift. I remember when I was in Florida and I started volunteering to do all that climate change stuff, I had a coworker, she just looked me in the eye once, and she wasn't a skeptic or anything, she was really good, but she's just like, why do you want to do this? And I was just like, this is just the most exciting issue of the last 50 years. Why wouldn't I want to do this? I mean, it's so exciting. What does it mean for ecology? You know what? I think that should be a philosophical discussion you guys have. You probably do have in some of your lectures, but you guys are doing pure research. How can you just ignore the signal of what maybe global warming means for all the work that you're doing? And so it's going to fundamentally alter what was considered pure research back in the past. And finally, I want to just end with maladaptation. Unfortunately, and I've been sort of telling a lot of people, I think us in the natural resource field, we're going to spend 50 years, if not longer, dealing with the impacts of maladaptation. And if you're not familiar with maladaptation, it's basically as society responds to climate change and we adapt to it, depending on how you adapt, is it bad for natural resources? And so would you rather protect some green infrastructure, natural areas as you're preparing for sea level rise, or build a seawall? What do you think a lot of local communities are going to do? They're just going to take the easiest route. They're going to build a seawall. Let's build higher dams to collect more water in the Southwest. we are going to be playing defense, dealing with all this maladaptation on top of the actual climate change impacts that are out there themselves. And so I think, people are kind of wise enough to, like, as the federal government decides to respond to climate change, you hear terms like resilience. That's the favorite word right now. Resilience and adaptation are two very different things. And resilience is this idea of bouncing back and being resilient to something. Sure, some systems might be, but some systems are going to change. And if you approach it as if you're just going to climate-proof the world, it's going to have a lot of negative impacts. And so that really concerns me, and that I think is going to keep us busy. Just quickly here, this is something I made when I was in DC. It's just like, as this emerging field of adaptation, you've got the CEQ, which is Council of Environmental Quality. They make all the major environmental policy. They're spitting out things on what you should do with adaptation, and the Department of Interior. There's all these different players, NGOs, and so everyone's kind of figuring things out on how they're going to respond to climate change. What does it mean, adaptation planning? A lot of internal federal discussions. In the top right, black hole, that is Congress. Not very helpful. They should be providing money out the kazoo, and they're not doing that right now, and that's not happening anytime soon. If anybody wants a copy of that, if they're just interested from their own policy perspective, I could send that to you. It was helpful to me as I kind of think about the different groups. All right. And finally, this is the whole climate change thing that I wanted to, is like, don't jump the shark. For you youngsters in the audience, which is most of you, there's a show called Happy Days. Fun. There was this episode toward the end of the run is where he was at the beach and he decided he was going to jump a pit of sharks on water skis. And it was like, why is Fonzie on skis jumping a pit of sharks? This doesn't seem right for Happy Days. And so it's become an expression. I don't know if you've heard about this, but don't jump the shark means you've sort of taken something where it shouldn't go. And they've got a new expression now, it's called nuke the fridge, and it was the new Indiana Jones film where he got into that refrigerator and it nuked, and it's like, don't do that to Indiana Jones. Why is he doing that? And so the whole concept of like, don't jump the shark is that I worry that people are dealing with climate change adaptation. We start dealing with things like vulnerability assessments, and just, this makes sense to us. But as you start thinking about the future and making decisions today on the future, you're really leaving a lot of people behind. And so conservation in general, don't jump the shark with it unless you bring people along. And so people that are highly educated, top of their game in their field, they don't know anything about climate change, and that's the problem. All right, so kind of shifting to more national issues. And so even though there's all this controversy about climate change, I think a lot of people think in the last couple of years, well, at least the science is settled. At least now we're hearing more about it's too expensive to deal with. And this study actually just came out recently, a few months ago, in September, and it's saying, no, the science hasn't been settled. If you look at the literature and look at the sort of discussions happening, things that we just assumed, like that 97% of climate science, actually, if you really dig into the stats of all of these topics, the science isn't settled out there, and that's disturbing, because I thought I saw a pivot toward like, all right, I don't know about climate change, but it's too expensive to deal with. So like, no, there's still a big discussion about even the basics of the science. So even though you hear all these things about Paris and all that, and Paris Accords recently were to deal with climate change, this is not the best, but we still have a long ways to go. That's a depressing thought. The other side, there's been so much social science coming out on the psychology of climate change. It's just been fascinating, and it's so easily to just poison the well. That one drop and the whole well is poisoned. Like the tactics to keep people comfortable with sound science, it's so easy for them, and that's very discouraging. And as you guys try to be rational people, the opposition, they'll play dirty. All right. We all probably have Facebook accounts, right? People are getting their science from stuff like this now. Literally, they'll look at one of these and they'll make a decision, or they'll bring it up in a conversation. They think they know something about science by what they read on this stuff. I love these things too. I see them. I don't have a lot of conservative friends on my Facebook feed, but I have some, and I love looking at them. But it's depressing that people will make these gut reaction instincts to some of this information over time. All right, so track of me. I like that one. Look at that eye on Robert Downey. I've given that same look to my parents. All right, okay. Current events. The Oregon militia is still out there. So, poor bird refuge, you know, this wonderful place, and like the bird watchers are prevented from going out there. And it's like, if you dig into this issue a little bit, it is about the science, you know? It's just like the science says this is to be a refuge, it has this ecological value, and then, you know, these ranchers have any number of other grievances. Oh, we want to be able to just use this land next to nothing, and science said, no, this is a refuge. And so this actually is a clash about science values and such, and so it's fascinating to see in real time. I mean, the more I learn about the guy, these guys are total bozos, you know, and so they do something. People have been sending in care packages, and they briefed this. One of the guys filmed himself, and he got a bunch of sex toys, and he's opening it up, and it's full of sex toys, and he just starts throwing them across the room, and he films this, and he shares it on YouTube. You didn't realize it makes it look like jackass, but it's hilarious. He's been getting these care packages of sex toys, so people are having fun with the Oregon militia. All right, who's the Trump voter here? All right, I might have some Trump voters out there. If I'm offending you, I can't help it. That's the name of my title. So, you Georgians, take a second to read that. Most of you are probably familiar with that quote. Revel in that, Georgians. Actual quote. He's on the science committee. He's on the House Science Committee. Paul Brown. Is he your rep? They changed it, right? But I mean, just to attack the Big Bang. I mean, he got into astronomy, you know? That was bad. Leave the Big Bang alone. I mean, that is Georgia politics. When I was here when that whole transition from old Democratic to the Republican revolution kind of came on, so it was interesting. But it seems like it's gotten a little bit worse with some of the rhetoric here. That's kind of scary. So, all around, I don't know if Nathan Deal said anything similar to this. Is that probably Blaze maybe? I don't know. Okay, so again, on this theme of Trump and everything, so I want to talk a little bit about my time at Florida. I won't go too long. First of all, I just want to point out, we don't ever been to Tallahassee. That's the capital of Tallahassee. Now look closely at the outside. Look at the symbolism there. We are your legislator, and we're going to... They did that. You drive down that road there, and that's what you see. I'm like, the planner must have known this. The architect. So when I was at Florida, I started the climate change program there. It was a very exciting time. We were doing all these different things. You know, I based a lot of the work that I did on things that I learned in Australia. And if Florida and my bosses were all like, bring it on, keep it on, they kept giving me more responsibility. We created like research groups focusing on adaptation. We created communication groups. And so we probably had 100 different people in a 2,000-person agency as part of these different teams. It was very exciting. Charlie Crist was the governor at the time, a Republican governor, who gave us this oxygen to do it. And so like my last year there, something happened, and we got a new governor. Rick Scott, you probably heard about Rick Scott, right? So things kind of just, you know, shut down on climate change. And so I talked to my boss, and I was a little nervous because all the other state agencies, everyone was not doing climate change at all. And he was like, all right, keep doing what you're doing, but shut down on our external stuff. So all the like story, media, outreach, we shut that down. And so like I even was given a heads up that with the new legislation that came in, they were looking around at state agencies' websites and looking for things like climate change. And so I didn't tell my boss. I took our website down for maintenance because we had a ton of stuff on climate change. And we had to do some maintenance. I wasn't doing anything illegal, but I wasn't going to have some 21-year-old go attack our climate change program, so we took it down for 3 or 4 months, and then we put it back up after we did that maintenance, and after we knew the sort of witch hunt was kind of off at that time. But the witch hunt apparently got stronger. And so you guys probably heard recently the governor banned the use of climate change, and you never hear any actual language like that. You may not say climate change, it's more insidious, and it comes out in different ways. And so this article that came out he actually interviewed me for that big article, and that article went international. And I told him about all my work at FWC, but I basically ended the conversation saying, don't mention FWC. You are going to get them in trouble. They're not going to be able to keep working on climate change. And so when the article came out, talked about DEP and talked about these other things, he didn't mention FWC. And I don't know if because of what I said, I was sort of waiting to him, like, listen, this is the reality. You have a story here. But like, if you highlight the work that they're doing, they might get shut down. So I was happy to do that. And he did a follow-up story comparing different agencies. And finally, FWC could talk about what they were doing, and there wasn't any sort of backlash to it. You've been probably hearing this term a lot. I'm not a scientist. This is a new one. I'm not quite sure. Like you hear the speaker talk about this when it comes to climate change. The language is, I'm not a scientist. And so, okay, so maybe the implication is that we should listen to the scientists. But that's not what they're saying. And so I'm not quite sure what they mean. I'm not a scientist. I think they're just trying to punt. They don't want to answer. But that is like, you see these talking points that kind of circulate around. And so I had Leatherface here with the chainsaws. Like when I first got to DC to work with the National Parks Program, our program took a 7% program cut 2 weeks after I started. Most programs were taking 5%, 10% cut. The climate change program took a 7% cut. The chainsaw was, they were out for blood on climate change at the time. This was during the whole continuing resolution with Obama in Congress. This has been a big story that's played out in the last few months. Lamar Smith, the chair of the House Science Committee, was doing a witch hunt on NOAA because NOAA released a study, because you probably heard that the deniers use this, there's been a pause in global warming in the last 15 to 18 years. That's sort of like the talking point. The study came out, basically said that's bunk, there hasn't been a pause. So Lamar Smith went after NOAA, wanted all these different emails. And so this, my role at SCP, my organization and 5 other science societies like AAAS and some really big ones, we drafted a letter and we all signed it, and that's a normal thing to do, is like we'll collaborate on those things. And we sent this letter to anyone, but we sent it to Lamar Smith. And it actually, when you write a letter, there's certain limited capacity of what you can accomplish, but that got picked up, our letter, by NPR, New York Times, and it was like the scientists coming out in defense of NOAA, because he was going on a witch hunt. And so actually in the last 6 weeks, he's backed off a bit, I'm not saying this necessarily a letter, but like sort of negative attention that he's going after, like, NOAA for doing their job. And so this has actually been playing out in the last couple of months, but it was interesting to sort of, when we first signed it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is something we support, and we chatted about the letter. I didn't think it was going to blow up like it did. It became huge, Washington Post, and so that was kind of fun. Just so you guys know, I want to too long here, is that, a lot of the rhetoric that you see is a little bit crazy, and the reality is a little bit different, and I think that's true for Georgia politics. So much work is done in committees, and you deal with committee staff. They're a little bit insulated from like the day-to-day politics. So when you get to know this committee staff, they're rational human beings. Even if it's a Republican committee person, it's like you talk to them, you share information, and so things aren't as black and white, but I sort of feel like it's changed a little bit. It's getting harder. The people recruited into those positions are becoming more partisan. And I've had this government ruled by 21-year-olds. I remember a meeting I went to as a Park Service employee, me and like 5 other sort of older career people from Fish and Wildlife Service, Army Corps. There was probably 150 years worth of experience on our side, and we were there briefing on these landscape conservation cooperatives, and 2 staffers from a couple offices came. They were told 21. They were sitting there, and we just got a briefing of these 2 21-year-olds, because they were like science staff or interns dealing with these issues in the office. You maintain your professionalness. This is how information gets up into those offices. And so it might seem like you got to park your ego. This is how you communicate information, but it's just kind of interesting. You walk around these House buildings, the Senate buildings, all these young people, younger than you, are making really big decisions. So Pork Barrel, I don't want to dwell on that, but it's just, they got rid of pork barrel politics, and that destroyed Republican and Democrats' ability to even communicate with each other. Who run Washington? Ron, there's my Mad Max reference. I hope you appreciate it. I told him last night I was going to have a road warrior reference. Great movie. So just kind of getting toward the end here, when you deal with policy, sometimes it's hard to define victories. And so I like to do my biggest conservation impact. This is South Little Island. I was visiting my friend Fred Hayes, who's one of this program, and he took me out hog hunting. And I shot that hog. Now that hog won't root up plants and destroy things. I accomplished something in conservation by getting rid of that hog, and I ate him too. But on a more serious note, probably my favorite accomplishment to date, I'm hoping there's a lot more, is that in Florida we created this 10-month-long climate change course that I got to design, and we recruited really cool speakers, the president of FSU, Dan Ash, the director of the Fish and Wildlife Service. He came down from DC to speak to our class. We had like 125 people sign up for this course, and our training coordinator said that was unheard of. People were desperate for information on how to be more informed on climate change. California copied my idea. They flew me out there to give a speech, and literally, like almost exactly what we did, they did. Everyone normally copies California. So California copied Florida. I was really proud of that accomplishment. And now I'm working with the National Conservation Training Center with Benjamin, and they've got a climate academy course that's modeled after this. And so people are desperate for climate information, and we're going to spend the next 5 to 7 weeks doing this. Finally, you guys, I'm going to jump right into this. First, I got a little exercise here, a little quickly. All right, Jessica, you know what you're supposed to do. I asked them to take their titles from your presentations. And when I was reading through these, I'm like, ooh, I'm roll off the tongue. And then I want you to give me a version that you might use in a crowdfunding campaign, or if you're talking to an 8th grader. And I want you, I'm going to ask you, you're going to just hands up if you think she accomplished her goal. All right, I got to go through all these.
Okay. How changes in the river water level flowing from the mountains to the ocean can hurt tropical animals that need to move along the same path to live?
And that's your crowdfunding one.
Too long?
You were supposed to read your original one, but that's fine.
Sorry, that was the crowdfunding one. I never did.
Did she get it? Was that Trump level? Doesn't matter. You get swag anyway. All right, next. Lindsay, where are you?
Here. I don't even remember my original because it's terrible. Like transformation causes shifts with the something. Okay, here's the competition. Getting to the dinner table. : invasive seaweed affects where shorebird feed.
All right. There we go. Okay, all right. That's some swag. All right, don't let this hit anybody. Oh! All right, Laura, where are you? All right.
My original title was Ecosystem Services Modeling on the Satilla River as a Land Conservation Academy. What I changed it to was, can understanding how nature serves people influence local planning?
All right, that's pretty good. Yes, that's a reality show. All right, a couple more. James emailed me this morning.
I did.
He's like, do you have a suggestion for this? I'm like, no, it's on you. Go on.
So I think my original title was Does Flow Velocity Influence or Vapori on a Widespread Magnified? Yeah. So I come up with, if I live in the river, will I be eaten?
Yes. All right. There we go. Last one. Paige.
Alright, so my original title was Optimizing Reliability of Early Warning Signals for Disease Emergence and Elimination. And then my one is, can we determine when a disease will occur and how we can control it?
All right, yeah, that's simple. That's great. Nice work, everyone. Dang, horseshoe. All right, anyways, thanks for that, guys. I wanted to just sort of make a point as I was reading all your presentation titles. Brilliant science, but not everyone in the room is even in your field, even if they are scientists. You know, I don't want to use the word dumb down, but I'm going to say dumb down the language. Because, you know, let people just get quickly, and it'll help with your elevator speech and all that, so there's value to that. All right, so just for you, I won't go around on how much time, but when you developed your presentation, were you just thinking, oh, it's fellow students, maybe the faculty, but what audience did you really have in mind when you developed your actual presentation? So keep that in mind. Science communication is a big part of what I do. Now these are the final slides where I want to talk about things for you, some advice. And so I was recently on a panel with some scientists about taking risks. Your discipline is actually quite conservative, be it like NSF grants and, you know, just your professors. You really can't take risks. I mean, if you have a great professor who really, but the whole culture kind of discourages it. And so this whole panel was about scientists and foundations sort of saying, what are the issues about taking risk? Why don't students take risk? And fear of failure. Well, it's failure actually, you learn a lot through that process. And you have limited time here. And so it was a fascinating thing, and we're thinking about even writing a paper about it, but just incentivizing risk. Even if you fail big time, was the trip worth it? And maybe it is. And so I think a lot of you, especially this first couple of years, you're so intimidated that we don't reward risk. And one of these things that I've been sort of looking into venture conservation about the idea of funders funding really innovative, high-risk projects, which that won't have a profit motive. We're just using that language just as a model. But I'm hoping maybe to explore that with some of the people that are on this panel. So take risks. And it's easy enough for me to say up here, but hopefully your science will benefit from it. Pivotal moments are pivotal. So when I was in Costa Rica, when I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school, I read Neil Wilson's The Diversity of Life. That book rocked my world, His call in that book is actually he wanted a whole army of taxonomists to go out and catalog everything. I didn't become a taxonomist, but it's just, you're like, wow, what's out there? And I think we all in this room have it in common. So that was a pivotal moment. And another pivotal moment, and this was climate change. I was at a presentation on climate science. The climate scientist was talking, and I went up to him afterwards, and I was like, wow, that's pretty scary stuff. This was like 2005. That's pretty intimidating. And he looked me in the eye, and he's just like, that was the happy version, And so this idea that scientists are being alarmists is horseshit. They're not. And he told me, like, this quote, a growing number of scientists, and he said he didn't believe this, and this is alarmist, but it's just like, they think we will be living near the poles by the end of the century because it's going to get that bad. Holy cow, this are scientists saying, this is serious. That rocked my world. And so my point of this is, like, you guys all have pivotal moments. Appreciate them. Take advantage of them. I've already gone too long. Steph and I have chatted about, like, you guys getting real world skills, marketing, budgeted, policy science. I'm staying on talking about it, but I think I'm running behind here. Hell then. Last couple slides. Take-home messages. Policy is messy. It's so messy. And victories can seem to take forever. Sometimes things take 10 years for a victory, and you got to stick with it. And some things are clear-cut. You write, there's a rule that comes out that's really bad for endangered species. You write a letter, they're like, oh, okay, we didn't know that. They decide not to do that. That's a clear-cut victory. But so much policy is just about process and many victories. And so keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged. You have an important role as a scientist. Go hang out with Lori. Go sign with Lori. Folks that have been dealing with policy. Take advantage of opportunities. The 90-10 rule. Folks, if you know Randy Olson, he wrote this book, Don't Be Such a Scientist. His whole thing is he goes and he just insults you, saying you're doing everything wrong, but there's kernels of truth to that. And I thought it was really interesting. He said, like, when you guys get an NSF grant or an institute grant, it says 90% goes into all the science and all the material, but they throw in this tag, like 5-10% of, like, but 5% or 10% needs to be dedicated toward communicating your science. And that usually just means your journal article, and you might just do something. And it's a throwaway budget item, and so he suggests you turn that around. 90% of it goes toward marketing your science and highlighting what you just did. And I don't agree it should be 90%, but the point is, it's when you just make it so small, you just don't highlight it. Be idealistic, not naive. There's a lot of idealism when you come here, and that's so awesome. Don't be naive. People are cutthroat out there. So we need you guys to be on your game. Relationships are important. Know how to talk to people, just making friends. You'd be surprised how that pays off in the long run. Most of us know how to deal with people, but a lot of times scientists are known for not being so friendly. Get outside your comfort zone, your science will benefit, and develop your own elevator speech, and I've shared that with some people in this room already. Whatever you do, distill it down into a 30-second elevator speech your drunk conservative uncle can understand. Even if he doesn't have to agree with you, but just get it down. Partly what this exercise we just did with the title. I've been trying to develop an adaptation elevator speech for like 7 years now, and I'm not even close. It's like this elusive thing, but it's worth it. This photo here, Johnny Armstrong is one of our members. He's capture motion, amazing stuff. Go to his website. But run for office, any office. Just get that experience. Volunteer. You guys doing this symposium. You're getting to talk to people. You're trading things. You're learning all those sort of how you deal with non-science things. And it seemed like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised. I didn't get nearly involved as I should have back when I was in school. I put this last minute. You know, you talk to a scientist, especially when you're talking to the public, you have to qualify the hell out of everything. This paper hasn't been published yet, or, you know, there's been a couple of just say something from the gut once in a while. You don't have to say that at a science conference, but, you know, just don't qualify. And this, next year, maybe for those 5-minute things, do a policy implication presentation. Any of your research product, do a policy version of it. What would you just speculate, have some fun with it, and maybe just do the 5-minute version, but just talk to some people who do policy and say, look, I'm studying Spartina, and okay, what's the policy? Well, there's plenty. Have some fun with that. If you've already done your one science one, next year, just do a policy version. Just kind of go outside your comfort zone. And I left all this text in here because I don't want to lose it, but you guys should do the training, the science communication, all those sort of things. Someone's doing Toastmasters. Jessica's doing Toastmasters. It's a great way to do public speaking. You might not think they're important now, but as you get farther along in your career, I'm not looking after your faculty or anything, you know, it's like you're less likely maybe to do these sort of things. So push yourself now, get outside your comfort zone, and it's going to benefit you. As you become administrators, once that transition from a scientist, as you get into management, it's a rough transition for a lot of folks who are in science. And so jump into it now, and you won't regret most of it 20 years from now. So, and I thought, what did I want my last slide to be? And first of all, I want to just thank you for being invited here today. But I'm not a scientist, but science is so exciting. What you guys do the last 2 days, you're out there in the field doing these cool things. And you know, we live in this golden age. When I look at those like Hubble telescope photos, I'm like, imagine Galileo getting a chance to look at that stuff. And we live in this golden age. Science is this great thing. There's all sorts of villains, I'm saying villains, but it's black and white sometimes, of like this being attacked. There's a purity to this. And you have a role as ambassadors to take that science, get the public excited about it, because it can turn on a dime, even if we've got the science behind us. That doesn't always matter. So learn some of those other skills and just stay excited about what you do with science. Like, you know, I get to skirt like science and that I learn all about it, I'm obsessed with it, but I don't really have to dig into the dirty details. But I have 2 children, 2 boys, and they love all science topics. I'm always talking about it. And so, just, you know, when you finish your careers, I just hope even if you go toward more of a pure research thing, kind of, you know, we're counting on you, even on the side, to be kind of involved in some of these other issues. And policy should be as scary as you think it is. And so, give it up for science. I went over a little bit.
Since we're over, maybe we're going to go out and enjoy dinner, but if you would like to talk to Doug more about designing a science or policy, please find him. He'll be around.
I need a beer first, though.
Yeah.